This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Jay Martin of Martin's Mobile Veterinary Services. Jay, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it. Diving into the veterinary services and learning a little bit more about you and your business. So let's get right into it. Jay, what is Martin's Mobile Veterinary Services?
Well, we're a house call veterinary practice. So we come to your house, we come into your living room or wherever your cat or dog is most comfortable. And that's where we do the examinations. That's where we do the treatments. We do all kinds of medical treatments, treating sick pets, wellness exams, vaccinations, blood testing, and quite a bit of in-home euthanasias as well. We differ from other house call practices. Some house call practices are done through it's all done in a vehicle. So when they come to your home, you bring your dog or cat out to the van and they do the work in there. And then some practices are more specific and they focus on euthanasia and hospice care.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. So we like to ask a few fundamental questions on the show. All the questions help reveal information about our guests, but there's a few that are like those first principle questions, those important ones. One of them is why. We talk about impact, talk about purpose a little bit. We like to know the story. Like, why do human beings do what they do? So what brought you to doing this? What brought you to running your own business? As entrepreneurship is not easy. Every guest that comes on the show is an entrepreneur. We are entrepreneurs. A business is hard to build. Connecting with humans is difficult. But why get into the veterinary world as well? So maybe a two-pronged approach. Let us know what's the story behind becoming a vet and why build your own mobile services.
Well, I think like most veterinarians, I became a vet because I loved animals so much. And there could be nothing better than spending your day working with animals and helping people with animals. It's a very, very rewarding career. But things have happened and the face of veterinary medicine has changed. I started practicing about 27 years ago, working at a practice in Barrie, owned by a beloved veterinarian, Dr. Lloyd Fisher. I consider him a mentor of mine. People would come from Toronto to see him. He was almost every year he was voted the Reader's Choice favorite veterinarian. He was beloved, and the practice was a thriving practice. And it wasn't because he was this fantastic marketer or he knew how to get people to spend more money when they didn't need to spend money. It was because really I feel like the practice was run on two tenets. One is practice good quality medicine, and the other is to treat patients and their owners with honesty, kindness, and respect. And it was a great place to work. I loved it. But then starting around 10 or 15 years ago, a big change took place in the industry. And that's when the corporations started buying practices. It used to be that all the practices in Ontario were owned by individual veterinarians. And then about 10 to 15 years ago, corporations started buying up practices. Initially, they'd buy up big multi-vet practices, and then they just buy more and more practices. They try to own the majority of the practices in each city, and it changes. Before, and my practice was bought by a corporation, the practice I was working at. That corporation was bought by a bigger corporation. And later on, that corporation was bought by a bigger corporation. Ultimately, it was owned by a corporation that owned 3,000 other hospitals worldwide. And so it goes from the daily decision-making, it goes from initially it was like the owner of the practice, the veterinarian I respected and worked with every day. He'd make decisions. We'd talk about things and it would be a group decision to some extent. And then it changes. So the decision-making is taking place in someplace in California by a think tank of accountants and executives. And so it changes things because really the primary goal of a corporation is to generate profits for the shareholders. And so when they buy a practice, their goal, the reason they buy a practice is to make money. And that's the way things are going to go moving forward. Whereas when veterinarians buy practices, it's because they love veterinary medicine, because they love animals and they want to do what they love. And so this whole corporate takeover of the practices, it kind of soured how I felt about veterinary medicine. And it actually concerns me quite a bit for the future. But then I moved to another practice that was owned by an individual, and everything was great. It was back to the way things should be. You know, decisions were discussed, and you know, we did things because it was the right thing to do. But then COVID hit, and COVID changed things again, because with COVID, it seems like so many people bought a new puppy or a kitten for, you know, the kids were home from school, they're bored, they needed something to entertain them, they needed some socialization. Veterinary practices across North America, across the world, were overrun with new patients and clients, and unable to keep up with the demand. So we'd be fully booked with clients, but we'd still have to see the animals that needed to be seen right away. And so trying to manage looking after all these patients with very little time, we really had no choice but to work longer, to work harder, to work faster. And then it started to feel like I started to worry that I just didn't have the time to address some of the problems. You know, a dog comes in very sick, and I've got like 3 or 4 other dogs that are equally sick waiting to be seen. I felt I wasn't doing as good a job as I could. And then also, you know, when the pandemic took place, the owners couldn't come into the exam rooms. They had to stay outside in their cars while we went and picked their dog or cat and brought it to the hospital, and then went back outside and talked about it afterwards. And you couldn't make that connection anymore. And so it made, once again, you know, veterinary medicine wasn't what I wanted it to be. Lots of veterinarians were burning out. Lots of veterinary staff were burning out. Lots of people who were nearing retirement were leaving, and making it even harder to hire new vets. I started looking at other careers, thinking, what else can I do? I'm not sure I enjoy my job anymore. And that was devastating for me, because being a vet is everything. It's my identity. It means so much to me. I just love being with animals. I love what I can do with them. There's nothing I'd rather do. And so then after a lot of thought, I looked into this whole idea of a house call practice, a place where I have control over the time. Appointments are an hour long. We take our time moving through things. We have time to talk about it. You can form much better bonds with people when you're in their home and sitting on their couch and chatting about not just their pets, but their backyards, their plants, their vacations. So you get a real bond with the clients. You see the animals in their own environment. Many are more comfortable. And it went back to, again, just practice 2 tenets, like practice good quality medicine, treat my patients with kindness and with respect, and just everything follows through after that. And so now I'm in a position where I'm once again extraordinarily happy to be practicing medicine, and really, really happy with where I am right now.
I love it. What a great story. And remind me, if you already said it, how long have you been a vet for, Jay?
About 27 years.
27 years. So that is long-term passion. I imagine through many different chapters and seasons throughout that 27 years, but I'm happy to hear that you found something that really fills the cup up again, especially with all the kind of twists and turns that you just shared with us about the vet industry over, what did you say, 10 or 15 years it's been going through this?
You know, I think our practice that I started at was one of the first practices in Ontario that was bought by a corporation. So we were at the very head of the beginning of the wave of corporate takeovers. And initially it seemed kind of benign, but got worse as time went on.
Yeah. Okay. So appreciate you sharing the story with us, because we love to know, as I said, the why. Why do humans do what they do? There's always an interesting story there. It's usually filled with passion in some sense, fulfillment in another way, contentment. I rarely hear I did it for the money, although that's not a problem. A profitable business solves problems for other people. There's nothing wrong with money. I don't want to demonize money. We certainly make money on our end, but it usually seems for the entrepreneurs that come on the show, there is a higher purpose, and that seems to be incredibly motivating and fueling for human beings as a whole, I find.
That's
But we also like to talk about not just the story, peel back the layers into the business. We like to talk about the person as well. Before we do that, we like to promote accurate information. We talk about the myths and misconceptions of the industries of the guests that come on the show, because if I have information in my head, that information is going to lead me to acting on it and making decisions, which is going to affect my life. If it's inaccurate information, like a misconception, then I'm going to be making decisions based on that and probably veering off the track a little bit. So there's audience members right now that are listening that have information in their head that could probably benefit from some more accurate information based on these misconceptions. So are there any myths or misconceptions about the vet industry as a whole or the mobile vet industry that you can think of and help clarify for us?
Well, I think there's like the veterinary industry or veterinary medicine. It's filled with myths from the public, largely fueled by internet searches and Google. So many, there's probably a Facebook group for just about any drug we prescribe saying that it kills dogs and kills cats. Really, really common would be monthly preventative medication like flea and tick prevention and heartworm prevention, anything that you give once a month. If you're giving something to a dog once a month, then there's a 25% chance, or every 4 weeks, there's a 25% chance in the next week something bad or something's going to happen to the dog, like it's going to happen a week after the medication. And so if a dog gets sick for some unrelated reason, then someone goes on the internet and says, oh, well, the heartworm medication made my dog sick. And so we see that a lot. A lot of misinformation about diets. That's a very, very complicated field and kind of scary to get into because people can be almost religious about the type of food they feed. If they feed raw food or if they feed grain-free food or if they feed this brand of food and you can't feed that brand of food. It can get very, very emotional when you discuss those things. So I feel that there's misinformation out there like that. I don't know. I think as far as the vet industry goes, one of the things that's always upset me is when people say, oh, you're just doing it for money. You're just, I went to the last vet and he's just trying to make as much money off of me as possible. He's telling me to run all these tests and do all this just to make money. And I really don't know any vets that do that. And I've been out there for a while. And if we run a test, we do it because we want information. And I just don't know any vets that specifically do things just to make extra money. And so that makes me sad when people accuse us of that, because we're really not that way. I've never met a vet like that.
Well, I love that because, really, at the end of the day, it's like you said a moment ago, people are very passionate about their animals, very protective. Often I have people in my sphere that treat their animals better than they treat themselves. Like they'll eat McDonald's, but then they'll go way out of the way to feed their dog like food. I'm a fitness guy. Like my life before helping businesses scale and marketing and all that, I really enjoy. That's really where my life is for this last decade. Prior to that, it was fitness. Fitness is still a big part of my life. And they will be feeding their food, their dog, more specific food than I would eat. And it's just
true.
But I bring that up because I had 2 pugs for 11 years, from little babies to the end of their life. And they changed me, man. So when I put them in the hands of a vet, if I thought for a moment that it was just for money, that hurts. That's a doubt. That's a mistrust. So I'm glad you felt that way, because I had a couple of not great experiences, but then I had some very great experiences. But knowing from your side of the table that you probably met a whole fleet of vets during your time, that you always felt it wasn't about the money. It was more about caring for the animal. So that's a good feeling to know, because we are so protective over our animals.
Just to sort of reinforce this, there's especially with corporations and stuff like that, they encourage the vets not to enter their own bills, because when vets enter their own bills, like, I see a client and then after I put in, what I charge for, vets typically leave things out. It's like, oh, I don't want to charge them for that. That's too much money. Maybe if I don't mention this, I'll just leave this one out. Whereas if you have someone unrelated and who's not thinking that way, then they charge more money. We're always thinking, oh gosh, that's so expensive. I know I am. Like, I struggle with this a lot. If I present a bill to a client at the end of an appointment and it's less than I expected, I think, oh, that's great. I'm happy that it didn't cost them a lot of money. I worry too much about what other people spend.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's important, right? I mean, we're passionate about our money as well. We don't want to just give it away. But I think more importantly, it's that underlining layer of trust, right? If I know that I'm bringing my animal to a professional, there's going to be a cost. I'm willing to pay it as long as it's fair and they treat my animal well. That is a good transaction. I'm comfortable with that. I imagine most people will be comfortable with that. So I appreciate you clarifying that for us and giving your take on it, especially from inside of the field. Something that I want to dial back into a little bit is the mobile vet services. That's something I know very little about. I have seen more and more of them. I've spoken to a few business owners of the mobile vet services. So I want to ask, as an audience member, there are still animals in my life. Why go to a mobile vet service over a brick and mortar?
That's I like that. I like that question. I think that the main reason initially, one of the things that actually surprised me since I've started this, and it's been about 2 years, is how many people tell me they didn't even realize there were mobile vets.
I think they're still uncommon, right? Compared to a brick and mortar.
Yeah. And one of the most common reasons why people will choose a mobile vet would be because it's so their animal gets stressed going to the vet, their animal gets stressed at the vet. It's hard to transport them to the vet. They get, especially cats, they hate traveling in cars. Another reason might be convenience. It's nice to be able to just sit at home and wait for the vet to come to your door and take care of things, and rather than having to get out. But there's advantages beyond that. I think that the idea that, for example, like I see fewer patients in a week than I would see in a day when I was working in veterinary practice. And so that means each appointment, each pet, each owner is that much more important to me. You're amongst a small group of people, so you're getting more individual care, and also we're a small group. I'm the only veterinarian. My wife is the practice manager. She answers the phones and talks to people on the phones and books appointments and answers questions. And then I have a technician that travels with me to appointments. And we hear so many people complain about how every time they go to the vet, they see a different vet, and they don't recognize. They used to know the receptionist, and they don't recognize the receptionist. And then when they go in and talk to the vet, they have to give the whole history all over again to the vet. But when you come to see me, I'm the same vet that you saw last time. We start off where we left off. There's no trying to explain your whole history. I know the whole history of your dog when I walk in the door. And also just, when you call for asking a question, you end up speaking to me. And so it's almost like a concierge type service where you're dealing with one veterinarian, his wife, and then the technician comes along on appointments. So I think that's an extraordinarily good reason to choose a house call practice.
It's interesting as you're describing this. I'm thinking in my head while I'm listening. Sometimes the brain goes off to different places, right? But it reminded me of an experience of doctors doing house calls, right? Like that seems to be, I wasn't around in those days, but it seems to be that was common for a doctor to come to your place. But I did actually experience that. My grandfather was nearing the end of his life, so we had to have a doctor come to the home. And I just remember sitting down with my family, and this doctor came for a few months. Like, we saw him regularly. Sometimes he brought a teammate with him for a little extra help, some tools, et cetera, et cetera. It was a completely different experience than going to the hospital. Bringing my grandfather to the hospital, well, that's why we eventually didn't, because it was so stressful. The traveling back and forth, there's people everywhere. We would see different people. There wasn't that intimacy, is the word I think I want to use. There wasn't that care. There was care at the hospital. I don't want to say that, but it was just, you felt less of a connection. And once he started showing up for those few months, we really got to know him. He really got to know us. He saw those same faces over and over again. And we knew that Gramps' life was coming to an end, but we regularly said, because of this experience, he went a little bit more peacefully, a little bit more. There was a little bit more comfort there. There was more connection there, to the point where Gramps was still lucid enough to speak to me, built a relationship with the doctor. So yeah, I can see the benefit of doing those house calls. Certainly for me, connection between two people is why I do what I do. I think that belonging to even a small group, large group, just connection from one human to another, I think is one of the greatest features of being a human. And I think the way you're doing it, at least from my experience on the doctor side of it, was an experience I won't forget. And I think that provides a lot of value, just getting to know your people, showing that you care a little bit more, on top of the convenience coming to your place and travel and all that.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about that until you brought it up, and it reminded me of my own experience. And that was a very impactful experience. So I think that's a very cool
Yeah, it is.
service that you offer.
I really enjoy about it is getting to know the people even better.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when again, I've said this a few times, especially when you're dealing with their animals. Like, that is a major important part of the family. So I think that's great. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Now we want to talk about the business. We've done that a little bit. We'll get back to the business. We also like to know about the person, Jay. I mean, that is really the point of these conversations, is not just to list another business and services, as businesses are a part of life, but people are more exciting, I think. I think we resonate more with individuals than we do with corporations or businesses, small or large. So I like to ask the guests that come on the show, what do we get up to for fun? Now, I'll provide some context. Do this every time because pretty much every guest answers the same way. Our entrepreneurs, they love their business, and their business provides fulfillment and fun. So we'll get a lot of the guests saying, I love what I do.
Yeah.
It's fun for me. And I imagine it is, but I know you get up to more than work. So what does Jay get up to have some fun in his life?
Well, I guess, I don't know if you call it fun, but meditation is really important to me. I've been meditating for over 30 years. And back then it was uncommon and restricted to, Buddhist temples and things like that. But now it's mainstream, and I think it's better for the whole world. I have a daily meditation practice. I go to a silent meditation retreat each year at the Ontario Vipassana Center, which is just outside of Barrie. And I find that meditation is beneficial in so many ways. It helps me be fully present when I'm in appointments, and I feel that I can listen better. I can take in things better when I'm not sort of thinking about myself all the time. I'm just there, present in the situation. So that's a really big part of my life and really important. And then maybe on the other end of the spectrum is I love motorcycles. I've got a dirt bike, and we've got like one of the biggest network of off-road motorcycle trails in Barrie, and I've got an adventure bike and for longer trips that are sort of off the beaten path, and that refuels me when I go away for a weekend on the bike, sort of going up north, exploring back roads and stuff.
I love that. Two very different ends of the spectrum. But I believe absolutely meditation is a large part of my life, that you can enjoy being on that bike more if you're being present rather than thinking in the past or in the future. Yeah. What I'm curious about is you're the first person that's brought up meditation on the show, and we've done hundreds of podcasts. And I don't spend too much time talking about me, or we would be talking about things like meditation and things like that. But you're the first one that brought it up. And just for my own curiosity, what brought you to delving into the world of meditation, Jay?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, it started, I grew up a really, really strong Catholic, and so strong, I went to a Catholic school. I go to church before school every day. So I was going to church 6 days a week, very, very religious. And then I went to university and started studying philosophy, and kind of realized, well, I came to the conclusion that there wasn't a God or an afterlife for me. And so then I got into existentialism and God is dead. But there didn't seem to be any point in living once you get deep into this existential philosophy. And then I saw there was a Buddhist church in the city where I was attending. It was in Halifax, and I attended that and started listening to the talks they gave, and it really just struck a chord with me. A way of enriching your life and enriching other people's lives that really wasn't involved in some being up above. It all is in your hands, and I've followed it all my life, and I've been with different groups, and I think there's tons of ways that one can meditate, and there's not one that's necessarily better than another.
I love that. And so many questions come up through existentialism. You said, what was the point of life through this philosophy? Have you changed your opinion on the point of life now through meditation and Buddhist practice?
Oh yeah.
What do you think it is?
It's to help others. You've got to, in some ways, it doesn't necessarily have to be through, volunteering here and there, but even just in every interaction you have with a person, it's my goal that any interaction someone has with me, that maybe I've somehow elevated them, made them feel better about themselves. So just in your day-to-day life, every time you're with another person, talking to another person, just somehow trying to make them feel better. That's of great value.
I agree. Absolutely. What I want to ask is, how does that make you feel? Rather than just being like, the purpose of life is to help other people. I think that's a great thing. Make the world better than you found it. I think, at least for me, it helps me consider how I feel when I help other people. So how does it make you feel when you impact other people in a positive way?
Oh, I think everyone feels good when they help other people. I think it's just natural. I think that's how people learn that, it's the right thing to do, because it just feels right. Anytime you help someone else, and even I think the real trick is not to expect thanks. If you can help someone and maybe do something for someone or give them something and they don't even thank you, that's okay. If you can do that, then you're truly helping someone in a selfless manner. But I think everyone feels better when they help people.
I agree. Well said, man. I love it. For me, so much of my life, I root in how I feel, because if you feel good, life feels better. When you feel bad, it doesn't feel quite as good. So if you're giving to somebody in the hopes of thanks, you're really basing how you feel on their impression of it, which is out of our control. So I know by giving, I feel good, and that's enough. I gave something to them. Hopefully it helps them. My intention was to help them, but I can't control whether it did or did not help them. But I feel good that I did what I wanted to do. And I walk away feeling with this sense of contentment. And it's not now hinged on their impression of it. We align in a number of ways, Jay. That's very cool. Not too many times has this conversation gone down into Buddhist practice, meditation, and the meaning of life. But that's more my speed. I will talk about this stuff all day. But for the viewers, let's get on to the next question, which is a really important one. Okay. And I think after learning the few things that I have about you, I don't think you'll struggle with this question at all. Okay. We like to talk about doing hard things on the show. We like to talk about presenting our human experience as close to reality as possible. So the good, the bad, the ugly, the gray areas, every color in between. And I find that, at least in my experience of life, that we don't talk about our hardships quite as much as I think we should. I think we often feel a sense of judgment or potential judgment, ridicule, embarrassment, or shame. We could call it a failure or a stumbling, whatever it is. We try to hide those in many cases. We go on social media and it's all the perfect versions of our life, everything polished, everything edited, not quite presenting reality as it is. We're tweaking it. And then on the news, that is another tweaked version, opposite end of the spectrum. Everything's salacious and negative. So really, these huge viewing sandboxes for a lot of people to gather and get information or whatever reason they're going there for, I don't think is a true representation of what the human experience is. So that's one part of it. That's one factor of it. The other reason we talk about it is because I think humans grow through challenge. I don't think we grow through comfort as much, at least. I'm still debated on that, but in my life, I'm certainly not growing through my easier experiences. My body and mind have no reason to change if I did really well in that experience. It says, you did well, keep doing the same thing. That's not a trajectory for growth for me. It's been the hardest moments in my life that I've had to butt up against, find answers that I didn't have, or fall on my face and learn to get back up again. That is where I found out much more of what I was capable of. I do addiction counseling on the weekend outside of growing the businesses during the week. And I got to that place because of facing that dragon in my own life, my family's life, and my friend's life. It was quite in my sphere, in my world. And that led me to developing skills of learning how to teach other people to move through sobriety and build good lives for themselves. So we like to ask the guests on the show, are there any trials and tribulations, life hardships that you've been through that probably sucked in the moment? Because normally when we're going through a hard thing, it doesn't typically feel good, hence it being hard. But when you look back in hindsight, you can say confidently, I wouldn't remove that experience from me. I wouldn't remove that ingredient from my life because it was an opportunity to help me become who I am today. Anything come to mind?
Well, I mean, I've gone through quite a few difficult experiences and come out the other end. But, I think like my whole life, a huge limiting factor for me is my shyness. I was a very, very shy teenager with low self-esteem, and I had a hard time talking in front of people or talking to people. And I don't think being introverted is inherently a bad thing, but I mean, if you can't talk to people, you can't really be a good vet. You can't, it limits how you can sort of experience the world if you're hiding out because you're, afraid of talking to people. And but I did want to be a vet. I think a lot of people in the field of veterinary medicine are similar in that sense, because a lot of times when you're very, very shy and you don't have a lot of friends, your pets become your friends. And so you form really, really strong attachments to your pets. And that's what happened with me. Like, my pets were what got me through all the difficult parts of my teenage years. But as I decided to go and become a vet, and then realizing more and more this might be a problem. But I've learned that there's a couple of things that sort of brought me out of my shell. One is this shared love of animals, because I love animals and my clients love animals. And so when we're together, we can just talk about the animals, and it's so uplifting to be around people who really appreciate animals the way I do. And so we kind of vibe together, and that sort of helps things go. And also I've learned a lot. I've over the years, I've learned a lot about animals, and I'm a pretty sharp guy, and I feel like I have a lot to offer. And so when I used to be in an exam room, but when I go to someone's home, I have a lot of information that I can pass on. And just knowing that I can help them and I can help their animal by sharing all this information keeps me talking. It makes me feel comfortable. And I'm still a very shy person, but I have a feeling that a lot of my clients wouldn't know that.
I wouldn't know that. You're killing it on here.
Oh, that's nice.
So through that experience of being shy, do you look at that as almost as the avenue through which you learn, through which you were forced to learn to connect with people through verbal communication? Like, you don't seem to be shy. You speak very clearly. It's very easy to connect with you. So was it because you were shy that you learned to connect with people through communication and speak more? Or was it because your passion for animals, you're just so passionate about it that you connected with people that also had a love for animals? What do you think it was that got you to this point of a person that clearly does not seem very shy to me?
Well, that's because we're talking about what I love. And I think that I'm still a very shy person. I don't think I've changed that much in that sense. Outside of veterinary appointments, I'm much quieter, and so I think I adapted. I adapted because I wanted to be a vet, and so I had to adapt. But I also think it's therapy for me too. Because, if I had a job where I was sort of, working from home, on computers and something, and I didn't really have to talk to people, I could quite easily just spend my life on my own, I think. I don't think I'd be too uncomfortable with it, but it wouldn't be good for me. I'm still a shy person. It hasn't changed.
Well, as I said, very easy to connect with. So shy, extroverted, introverted. I'm looking for connection. Many people do, and you are easy to connect with. So I appreciate the connection, Jay. Back to business. What is one thing that you wish the audience knew about Martin's Mobile Veterinary Services, specifically your business? If you could distill it down to one valuable attribute, what would it be? I usually ask that, and then people list off 15 things.
Yeah,
I have to find a better way to present it. So that was the first time I tried it. Distill it down into one valuable attribute.
Just to get there's tons of benefits to having a vet come to your house and look after your pets. But I sort of go back to what I said before. It's sort of the unrecognized benefit is this bond. You become part of the small team of professionals that are focused on you and your pet, and not on 1,000 or 10,000 other pets. We're a small group of patients, a small group of professionals. I think that has tremendous value.
Love it. I love it. Thank you for keeping it to one or two things. I appreciate it. So I don't know if you had a look at the questionnaire. We send out a questionnaire to all of the guests to have them. No,
I didn't see it.
Okay. I was about to say, this is my secret weapon, my secret question. I don't put it in the questionnaire, but as I said at the beginning, I alluded to it a couple times. There's some fundamental questions that we like to ask in these episodes. We want to hear about the business, but the why question, the hardship question, and then this one in particular. The people who know me, my team, the people in my life know that I only really talk, study, and get passionate about 4 or 5 things in my life. Fitness would be one of them: mentorship, entrepreneurship, purpose, impact. Those are the 4 or 5 things that really get me going. Human potential. Very curious about our species. We're fantastic. It's unbelievable. I really think we're quite limitless. But off topic a little bit, impact is what I want to ask you in this one. Mentors, have been very lucky to have some great mentors. You were talking about one of your mentors before. I think behind every excellent person, there's an excellent teacher. And I was very lucky to butt up against some really good mentors at an early age, early 20s. And she encouraged me to think about my impact. Again, the whole point of this show is about connecting with our local community, enriching the lives of others. So I think impact fits the bill. So she encouraged me to think about my impact. At 23, she was like, you were born, you're going to die one day. You will have an impact on this world. What would you like it to be? Have you ever even thought of it before? My answer was, of course, no. I'm 23. Girls, cars, parties, that kind of stuff. That's the person I was. 23. I needed to go through that to get to the next chapter. So that has been an ongoing theme in my life, thinking about my impact, trying to be as intentional about it as possible. She taught me that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So be intentional about your impact today. But forever long you are here, what would you like your impact to be? Essentially, you're born, you die. What impact do you want to have on the world? So I've spent a great deal of time thinking about that. And I like to ask the guests to come on the show, what would you like your impact to be, Jay?
What I think the most important human trait in my mind that a person can have is kindness. And I think that sometimes kindness is undervalued. Like it's wimpy to be kind, or, in order to get your way, you have to stand up for yourself. And sometimes you got to be mean to people to get things accomplished. Whereas I would like people to see that you can live your life totally focused on kindness to others and be successful. That there's not a lot you have to do beyond that it can really benefit you incredibly just by making your primary goal to be kind to people. And if other people could see that and do that, the more people that are kind to each other, because it is sort of, it perpetuates. When you're kind to a person, they're more likely to be kind to a person. Whereas if you're in traffic and you're honking and giving someone the finger, then they're more likely to get upset. Like kindness just sort of spreads and pervades. So the more people that are kind, the better the world is. So if I could sort of have some sort of impact in making it a kinder world, that'd be really good.
Mic drop. That was very well said. I mean, you're right. Everything we do has a ripple effect, I believe. I do really believe in the interconnectedness. No, even though this world seems massive in the grand scheme of things, it's really quite small, and we are quite small. But outside of the universe and all that, it is a big world to us. And so I don't think about having an impact on somebody in Europe or in Asia or something like that. But my energy flows into the next person. If I'm mean to them or inconsiderate, that'll affect them, and it'll affect the next person, and next and next and next. So I do like thinking about how wide that ripple effect could go, not stressing myself out about it, like my decisions will impact the entire world. But I think it just shows that if you can just be kind to somebody, put a smile on somebody's face, take that little extra effort, that it can go quite a distance. And I love that that's what you chose to focus your impact on, is just be a little kinder. It's easy, and it does have a great impact. I love it, Jay. I was really happy to have you on the show. It was a great conversation. Now we want to know, how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, okay. You can go to our website, martinsmobilevet.com. It's a very good website. It's got an extensive library of medical conditions, so you can go and research diseases, any disease you want to know about in dogs or cats. It's there. It's got a new client form if you want to sign up to become a patient. You could Google us and read our, in our business profile. You can see we've got some nice reviews. It is tricky to get a hold of us being a mobile practice, because we're on the move. We're not answering the phone all the time. But if you call us, 705-999-9469, we will call you back once we have the time. And actually, the best way to communicate with us is by email, martinsmobilevet@gmail.com. It's easier for us to check our emails. And we do a lot of our communication through email.
Wonderful. And was it martinsmobilevet.com? That was the website?
Yep, that's the website.
Wonderful. Well, Jay, I got to say, this was a pleasure for me. Somebody brings up meditation and Buddhist philosophy and meaning of life and all that. They come on the show thinking they're just going to promote their business. And then we go into the meaning of life. So that's my speed. That is what I connect my business to. I use entrepreneurship to live out who I want to become, find out what I'm capable of, and consider what kind of impact I can have. It's much more about money. It's much more about a paycheck to me. So thank you for letting me go deep with you, Jay. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I'm happy you did, man.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com, or call 705-413-3775.